Thank you all for gathering this morning, online as well as in person. My name is Pat McLear, and with direction from Kim Kiefer, I will be the lay leader this morning. Welcome. We are the Juneau Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. No matter your age, no matter your strength, no matter your beliefs or lack of beliefs, no matter who you love or who you live with, congregation founders and first-time visitors, we welcome you here to this community. The mission of the Juneau Unitarian Universalist Fellowship is to be a spiritual home for all people who are engaged in a search for truth and meaning. And we are glad that you are here. Our opening words, Being Sanctuary by Joe Van Roo and Lynette Lowe. Welcome to this space, the sanctuary of peace, where we come not only to create our best selves, but to also do the work of creating a beloved community. We come together today as individuals, much like individual pieces of glass or pottery that have different shapes, sizes, colors, all of which are broken, with imperfect, jagged edges, but always beautiful. While our pieces may not always fit neatly together, it is within this sanctuary, guided by our principles, that we gather together to create a beautiful mosaic. May the brokenness and beauty we find in one another create peace in this space and fill our hearts with love as we create worship together. The chalice lighting is titled An Invitation to Arrive and Rest by the Reverend Sherry Woodbury. And if anybody in particular wants to light that candle, they're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I bet Martha would jump up and do it.
I think we have one. Well,
I don't,
no.
they keep elbowing each other, so I'm not sure. We come to rest in this moment, in this place. We set apart the never-ending to-do list, embracing the seventh day, the day of rest. We come to the warmth and the stillness of the sacred hour. Remember, you have chosen to be here. Something in your life led you to arrive here now. Whatever tasks and cares await you now for this brief time, simply rest. Allow your soul to be nurtured. Let the waves in your mind and heart gradually subside as you come home to yourself, whole and holy. The hymn this morning is one more step. I didn't distribute hymnals because the words are on the video.
We will take one more step.
have a responsive reading, and your response is practice, repair. Practice, repair. The piece was written by the Reverend Dave McFarland. Bless generously, curse rarely. Practice, repair. Read a book or a blog, or watch a movie about something or some situation or someone beyond the ability to relate. Practice, repair. Lean into comfort zones, strengths, and inklings of bliss. Practice, repair. Pause to ask whether words are both skillful and absolutely necessary. Practice, repair. Sing full-throated songs that create and recreate beloved community. Practice, repair. Let go of stubborn self-righteousness and have mercy. Practice, repair. Honor the ancestors who could not have imagined our lives or even our very being. Practice, repair. Smile. Practice, repair. Multiply joy, divide sorrow. Practice, repair. With the tools at hand, practice, repair. Perhaps I have tools you could borrow. Perhaps you could lend me from yours, and together we can practice, repair. So for those of you who didn't get the email, that's the theme for this month, is repair. As is always the case, trying to put thoughts together with all the resources that are given us through Soul Matters, sometimes I get absolutely overwhelmed, admittedly. So this is a sermon written by the Reverend Laura Horton-Ludwig. And I selected this for a couple of reasons. One, because there are a couple of things she said and I went, oh. And then I thought, when we do Chalice Chat, we can explore things even more. So, yeah. Judgement-Free Zone by the Reverend Laura Horton-Ludwig. I want to share a true story about Soul Matters theme for this month, repair. The story starts with one person judging another very harshly, but it doesn't end there. The story ends with insight, compassion, and a commitment to repair the relationship with some lessons for all of us along the way. Let's begin. Back in 2020, a guy wrote to Carolyn Hax's advice column in the Washington Post. He and his wife, both lawyers, had been working at home since the pandemic started. Now that they didn't have to commute, they had some free time on their hands, and so the guy wrote as follows. We promised each other we would use that time to be productive in ways our prior schedules did not permit. In the past 6 months, I have kept my end up of the bargain. I have read 25 biographies, developed a decent conversational skills in 2 foreign languages, upped my running program to the point that I am marathon ready, and started volunteering about 10 hours a week for voter registration advocacy, all the while continuing with my full-time job. My wife has done not so much. She has generally used the time to, quote, unwind. I have confronted her several times and she tells me she is, quote, rejecting productivity culture. And that she doesn't feel like improving herself right now. I'm getting increasingly frustrated, disgusted even, that she would waste this gift of free time. Do you have any suggestions other than divorce? When I first saw this letter, I was outraged. How dare he judge his wife like that for taking care of herself? My response. Let him keep learning foreign languages and running marathons if he's into it. That was my knee-jerk negative reaction. Lo and behold, he wrote back to the advice column a few weeks later with an update that surprised me greatly. He wrote that he had indeed asked his wife for a divorce, and then, sadly, both his parents passed away of COVID. He wrote, despite the way that I had treated her, my wife was completely there for me with unconditional support. And I asked her to reconsider the divorce. She agreed if I promised to complete a course of individual therapy to figure out why I had been acting so mean and judgmental. We uncovered a lot of issues from my childhood, notably that my parents equated not being the best with worthlessness. Even more so, they believed that life was something to be suffered through with grim determination, and that enjoying oneself was almost always inappropriate. For example, when I was 12, I woke up one day to find my beloved piano had been sold because I was, quote, having too much fun and treating it like a toy. Similarly, I was forced to switch from soccer to track in high school because I wasn't good enough at soccer to be a starter, even though I loved being part of the team. This all resulted in my being incredibly critical and also jealous of people who could simply find joy in things. Hence my treatment of my wife, as well as a tendency to pursue activities I didn't even like that much that I would otherwise fear that because the fear I wouldn't be good at it. He concluded, I will certainly be making amends for years to come, but actually feel happy and hopeful. I am just sorry I wasted so many years and caused so much pain in the process. Wow. As Mr. Rogers once says, there isn't anyone you couldn't learn to love once you've heard their story. I don't read that convincingly, but hence why I chose him. And this man's story is full of lessons for all of us who struggle with being judgmental about other people and want to get better at repairing our relationships when we miss the mark. Here are the big takeaways I want to offer you. First, we don't know the whole story about anyone else. Second, often what we judge most harshly in others is really a longing or an unmet need in ourselves. And third, setting our own boundaries helps us let go of judgment. Let's take them one by one. First, we do not know the whole story about anyone else. When I heard the first part of this man's story, I got so triggered that I completely forgot to ask, wow, I wonder what made him so focused on accomplishing things. I completely forgot that I knew only a tiny sliver of his story. When you're feeling judgmental about someone else's behavior, please learn from my mistake and remember, you don't know the whole story of how that person got to be the way that they are today. When I heard the second part of the lawyer's story, I was so moved. I had been so wrong about what was driving his pushy, judging behavior. This was someone who had been emotionally abused as a kid by parents who may well have experienced the same kind of abuse when they were little too. For me to say, that guy's a jerk, fell so short of the complicated, poignant reality of his life. And indeed, it's just replicated more of the emotional violence he'd grown up with. I'm grateful to have been reminded there isn't anyone you couldn't learn to love once you heard their story. And isn't that the foundation of our Unitarian Universalist faith? That all of us are held in love, that if we could only know each other deeply enough, we could not help but love each other. So that's the first practice. You don't know the whole story, get curious. Once you know more, chances are you'll find so much more compassion in yourself that you can't help but start the process of repair. Now, the second takeaway, often, what we judge most harshly in others is really a longing or an unmet need in ourselves. In the lawyer's case, he had been a kid who loved to play the piano and play soccer just for fun. But out of his parents' own wounding, they taught this kid that was wrong and bad. And so the adult became very critical and secretly jealous of anyone who could just relax and enjoy life. To repair his relationship with his wife, he needed to rediscover that part of himself and long to relax and rest and have fun. So when you find yourself getting judgmental about someone else and their way of doing things, I encourage you to remember this story. Ask yourself, what exactly is pushing my buttons? Then ask yourself the magic question. Whatever that thing is that's pushing my buttons, is that something I wish I could do? Only I'm not letting myself do it. Maybe not, but maybe so. Whenever that does ring true, we all have an obligation to practice relationship repair by walking back our judgments and focus on tending to the unmet needs of our own hearts. Which leads us to the third takeaway from the lawyer's story. Setting our own boundaries helps us to let go of judgment. I am so impressed with the behavior of the lawyer's wife in this story when she said to her husband, yes, I will stay in the marriage if you can figure out why you've been acting so judgmental. She was setting a very important boundary. Instead of getting caught up in judging her husband, she was clear with him about her needs. She was clear that his behavior toward her was harmful and needed to stop, or she would not stay in the relationship anymore. That's not judging, it's setting a boundary to take care of yourself. And it's a gift to the other person because it lets them know what you need. It's setting them up for success by helping them understand what repair looks like for you. So how can we put this into practice? I remember once a friend who really wanted me to get involved with his project they were doing. I didn't want to do it. Long story, details don't matter. The main point is they kept asking, and I started getting frustrated with them. I had pretty judgmental thoughts in my head about them, like, why do you keep bugging me? They're so annoying and pushy. But finally, I realized I had never clearly said no. I had given them some wishy-washy, maybe, we'll see type of responses, but I had not been clear with them. In my head, I was angry with them. But I'd never given them a chance to fix the problem. Instead, I was the one who was driving us apart, which meant that I was the only one who could fix it. So I finally sat down with them and said, look, I know you want me to do this, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. It was such a relief to set the boundary. Our friendship got back on track, and now I can even look back with admiration for how strong an advocate they were for the things they cared about. Now, to recap once more, when you're feeling judgmental, try clarifying your boundaries instead. Remember that your judgmental feelings may be masking an unmet need in you. And never forget, you don't know the whole story about another person and what makes them act the way they do. If you did, you couldn't help but understand and maybe even be able to love them. Maybe. That was me. So go forth and practice repair by letting go of judgment. Our personal relationships need it. Our world needs it. One small step at a time. This is how we learn to understand more, love better, and repair all that is still broken in this world. May it be so. Tim, I'm going to ask you to take the lights down, and we'll just have the candles. Thank you. This is called Mending, the Reverend Nancy Schaefer. How shall we mend you, sweet soul? What shall we use, and how is it in the first place you've come to be torn? Come, sit. Come tell me. we will find a way to mend you. I would offer you so much, sweet soul. This banana, sliced in rounds of palest yellow atop hot cereal, or these raisins scattered through it, if you'd rather. Would offer cellos in the background singing melodies Vivaldi heard and wrote for us to keep. Would hold out to you everything colored blue or lavender or light green? All of this I would offer you, sweet soul, all of it, or any piece of it might mend you. I would offer you, sweet soul, this chair by the window, this sunlight on the floor and the cat asleep in it. I would offer you my silence, my presence, all this love I have, and my sorrow, you've become torn. How shall we mend you, sweet soul? With these, I think gently, we can begin. We will mend you with a rocking chair, some raisins, a cat, a field of lavender beginning now to bloom. We will mend you with songs, remembered entirely the first time ever they are heard. We will mend you with the pieces of your own sweet self, your sweet soul, with what you've been taught from the very beginning. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended, not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go, love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. Shall we sing?
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.